Mr. Carter had built a life most people only dreamed of. His sprawling estate stood as a testament to his success, a world of luxury, comfort, and ease. Yet amidst the shimmering chandeliers and marble floors, his heart held a treasure more valuable than all his wealth combined: his triplet daughters, Emma, Sophie, and Lily. Their laughter filled the grand halls, transforming the imposing mansion into a warm, lively home. After losing his beloved wife in an accident when the girls were just infants, Mr. Carter had poured his entire being into raising them. The pain of her absence lingered, but the triplets brought light to his darkest days. Each girl was a reflection of their unique personalities. Emma, the eldest by mere minutes, was curious and sharp, with an insatiable thirst for knowledge. Sophie, the middle child, was artistic and thoughtful, her sketches often adorning the walls of their home. And Lily, the youngest, was spirited and playful, the heart of every family game and mischief. The bond they shared was unlike anything Mr. Carter had ever seen. They finished each other's sentences, could communicate with just a glance, and were fiercely protective of one another. Their connection was natural and effortless, a symphony of shared emotions and instincts. Watching them grow filled Mr. Carter with pride and awe. He had promised himself and their late mother that he would do everything to ensure their happiness, and so he made a choice early on, a choice he never questioned until now. The triplets didn't know they were adopted. The secret weighed on Mr. Carter at times, but he believed it was for the best. Why disrupt the life they knew? They were happy, thriving in a world of love and privilege. He rationalized that telling them might only create unnecessary pain. As far as anyone was concerned, Emma, Sophie, and Lily were his biological daughters, born into a family that adored them. Years passed peacefully. Their days were filled with school, music lessons, art projects, and weekends at the family lake house. Mr. Carter's world revolved around the girls, and he ensured they never wanted for anything. Yet, despite the idyllic life they led, the truth of their beginnings lingered like a shadow in the back of his mind. It was a sunny afternoon when everything began to change. Sophie, the most inquisitive of the three, had been rummaging through an old chest in the attic, looking for props for a school play. Among the antique trinkets and forgotten photo albums, she stumbled upon a box sealed with tape, its surface marked "Private" in bold letters. Intrigued, she hesitated for a moment before peeling the tape back and lifting the lid. Inside, she found papers, documents that didn't make sense at first, adoption certificates. A wave of confusion washed over her as she scanned the names, dates, and signatures. Her father's name was there, but her mother's name was different. Even more puzzling was the realization that her name, along with Emma's and Lily's, appeared not as biological children but as adopted triplets. Sophie's hands trembled as she closed the box and placed it back where she found it. She didn't say anything to her sisters at first, unsure of how to process the discovery. But the truth was a heavy burden to carry alone. That evening, as they sat together in their shared bedroom, Sophie's emotions spilled out. She told Emma and Lily what she'd found, her voice wavering as she tried to explain. The news hit like a thunderclap. Emma, ever the logical one, tried to piece it together, asking questions Sophie couldn't answer. Lily, though visibly shaken, tried to lighten the mood with a joke, but her laughter faded quickly. The girls sat in silence, the weight of the revelation sinking in. They weren't just grappling with the fact that they were adopted, they were grappling with the idea that the man they loved as their father had kept it from them. Mr. Carter, unaware of the discovery, went about his evening routine, preparing for their nightly movie time. When he walked into the living room, he found the three of them sitting together, their faces somber and pensive. His heart sank, sensing that something was wrong. "What's going on?" he asked gently, taking a seat across from them. Emma looked at him, her eyes filled with questions. "Dad," she began, her voice steady but laced with emotion, "is there something you need to tell us?" The question hung in the air, heavy and charged. Mr. Carter's breath caught as he realized the moment he had feared for years had finally arrived. The laughter that once filled the house seemed like a distant memory as father and daughters sat on the brink of a conversation that would change everything. While helping her father prepare for the annual charity gala, Emma found herself in the attic, rummaging through years of forgotten items. The space was cluttered with old furniture, dusty trunks, and boxes filled with trinkets from a life well lived. Her mission was simple: find decorations that could add a nostalgic touch to the event. The soft creak of the floorboards beneath her feet and the faint smell of aged wood filled the quiet space as she sifted through the memories stored there. She moved aside a stack of books and spotted a small wooden box tucked in the corner. Its lid was slightly ajar, revealing a glimpse of yellowed papers inside. Curiosity piqued, Emma knelt down and pulled it closer. At the top of the pile was an envelope, its edges worn and brittle. The bold, faded handwriting across the front read, "To Mr. Carter." Beneath it, the return address caught Emma's attention, a name she didn't recognize. It was from an orphanage. Emma froze, her fingers tightening around the envelope as her mind raced. Why would her father have correspondence from an orphanage? She hesitated for a moment before deciding to open it. The paper inside was delicate, and as she unfolded it, her eyes scanned the brief letter. The words were vague, yet unsettling. The note referenced unusual circumstances surrounding the triplets' birth and alluded to a troubled history involving their biological parents. The final line read, "We trust you will provide a safe and loving home for the girls." Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she reread the letter, her mind spinning with questions. Without waiting another moment, she descended the attic stairs, clutching the letter tightly in her hand. She found Sophie and Lily in the living room, their laughter fading as they noticed Emma's pale expression. "What's wrong?" Sophie asked, concern etched on her face. Emma held up the letter. "I found this in the attic. It's addressed to Dad, from an orphanage." The room grew still as Emma explained what she'd read. Sophie, always the logical one, immediately wanted to examine the letter for more details, while Lily sat quietly, her expression a mix of confusion and unease. The idea that their father had kept something so significant from them was hard to grasp. They had always believed they were born into their father's world of privilege, not brought into it through adoption. The three girls sat in a tight circle, their heads bent over the letter. The more they read it, the more questions it raised. What were the unusual circumstances? Why hadn't their father told them? And what could have been so dark about their past that it had to be hidden? Confused but resolute, the sisters decided to confront Mr. Carter. That evening, as he worked in his study, the three of them appeared in the doorway, the letter in Emma's hand. Mr. Carter looked up, his face lighting up with a warm smile that quickly faltered when he saw their serious expressions. "Dad," Emma began, holding out the letter, "we found this, in the attic." Mr. Carter's eyes darted to the envelope, his face visibly paling. He reached for it, but Emma held it back. "Why do you have a letter from an orphanage? And why didn't you tell us?" Sophie added, her voice steady but tinged with frustration. "Is it true? Were we adopted?" Mr. Carter stood and moved toward them, his demeanor shifting to one of calm authority. "Girls," he began, his tone soft but firm, "this isn't the time to talk about this." "When is the time then?" Lily burst out, her voice breaking. "We deserve to know the truth." Mr. Carter hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor. "Yes, you were adopted," he admitted finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "But it doesn't change anything. You're my daughters, and I've loved you as my own from the moment I brought you home." "But what about this?" Emma pressed, waving the letter. "What aren't you telling us?" Mr. Carter's discomfort deepened. "The details of your past, they're complicated. I didn't want you to carry the weight of it. I wanted you to grow up happy and free from those burdens." The sisters exchanged a glance, their father's evasion doing little to ease their curiosity. If anything, it only strengthened their resolve to uncover the truth. Their bond, which had always been their greatest strength, now became their shield, as they silently vowed to unravel the mystery of their origins, no matter how difficult the journey ahead might be. The triplets gathered in their shared bedroom late that night, their father's evasive answers leaving them restless. The discovery in the attic had cracked open a door they couldn't ignore. With a mix of determination and trepidation, Emma, Sophie, and Lily decided to uncover the truth for themselves. They knew their father's study, filled with old documents and locked drawers, might hold the answers they sought. The following day, while Mr. Carter was away handling preparations for the charity event, the girls began their search. They combed through filing cabinets, desk drawers, and boxes tucked into corners of the mansion. Hours passed with little success, their frustration mounting, until Sophie found a folder buried beneath a stack of ledgers. Inside was a police report, its pages yellowed with age. The words they read stopped them cold. The report detailed how they had been found as infants, rescued from the ruins of a burned-down house late one night. The responding officers had been astonished to discover the 3 babies sitting in the charred remains, miraculously unharmed. What struck the girls most was the description of how they had been found. They were holding hands, a detail repeated by multiple witnesses. "That's impossible," Emma whispered, her hands trembling as she held the report. The imagery sent chills down their spines, leaving them with more questions than answers. How could they have survived such a tragedy without a scratch? And why had no one ever told them about this before? Their search wasn't over. The police report referenced the orphanage where they had been taken after the fire. Armed with the address, the girls decided to pay it a visit the next day. Though nervous about what they might learn, their curiosity outweighed their fear. When they arrived, the orphanage was a modest building tucked away on a quiet street. A kind but weathered caretaker named Mrs. Jennings greeted them, her eyes softening as she realized who they were. At first she seemed hesitant to speak, as though the weight of what she knew was too much to share, but the girls' earnest questions and visible distress finally broke her resolve. "I remember the night you arrived here," Mrs. Jennings said, her voice tinged with both sadness and awe. "It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. You were so small, yet there was something extraordinary about you." The triplets exchanged nervous glances. "What do you mean?" Sophie asked. Mrs. Jennings hesitated before continuing. "Your parents, they were remarkable people, brilliant scientists. They were working on an experiment, something groundbreaking. They believed they could enhance the emotional and mental bonds between siblings, creating a connection so strong it defied explanation. You 3 were the subjects of their work." The revelation hit them like a tidal wave, but Mrs. Jennings wasn't finished. "The fire that night, it wasn't an accident. Someone wanted to destroy the evidence of their research. I don't know who or why, but your parents gave their lives to protect you." The weight of her words settled heavily over the girls. Their lives, once so simple and carefree, were now tangled in a mystery that stretched beyond anything they could have imagined. Holding hands as they had on the night they were rescued, they silently vowed to uncover the truth about their past and the legacy their parents had left behind. That evening, the triplets sat in the living room, the police report and their new knowledge weighing heavily between them. Their father entered the room, his usual warm smile fading as he noticed their somber expressions. Emma held up the report, her hand steady despite the storm of emotions brewing inside her. "Dad," she began, her voice firm, "we know about the fire, about our biological parents, and about the experiment." Mr. Carter froze, his face paling. He lowered himself into the nearest chair, his hands clasped tightly together. For a moment, the room was silent except for the faint ticking of the clock. "I was hoping you'd never have to know," he said quietly, his voice filled with regret. Sophie leaned forward, her tone sharp. "Why didn't you tell us? Why did you keep this from us for so long?" Mr. Carter exhaled deeply, his shoulders slumping under the weight of years of secrecy. "Because I wanted to protect you. I thought if you never knew, you could live a normal, happy life." Lily's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "Is it true you funded the experiment?" Mr. Carter looked at her, his face etched with guilt. "Yes," he admitted, his voice trembling. Years ago, I unknowingly provided funding for a project through my company. I didn't realize the full extent of what was being done until it was too late. When I learned about the fire and the three of you, I felt responsible and horrified. He paused, his voice breaking as he continued. Your parents, they believed in what they were doing. They wanted to create something beautiful, something that would strengthen the bond between siblings. But someone wanted their research destroyed. When I saw you three sitting in the ruins, miraculously unharmed, I knew I had to keep you safe. Tears welled in Emma's eyes. So you adopted us out of guilt? No, Mr. Carter said firmly, his eyes meeting hers. I adopted you because I loved you. From the moment I saw you, I knew you were meant to be my daughters. That love has always been real, no matter what. The triplets were shaken, their emotions swirling in a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. Yet as they looked at their father, they saw the same man who had raised them with unwavering care and devotion. The bond they shared had always been real, and nothing, no secret or revelation, could change that. The grand hall shimmered with elegance as guests mingled at Mr. Carter's charity gala. The event was a yearly tradition, a night of generosity and celebration, but this year it carried a deeper significance. As the crowd quieted for the evening's program, all eyes turned to the stage. Standing together were Emma, Sophie, and Lily, their presence radiating strength and unity. Emma stepped forward, her voice steady as she began to speak. Tonight, we want to share something personal, something that has shaped us in ways we never imagined. She glanced at her sisters, drawing courage from their unwavering support. Sophie continued, her artistic flair evident in her choice of words. We grew up believing our family story was simple, but life has a way of revealing hidden truths. We recently learned that we were adopted, found as infants in the aftermath of a tragedy. At first, we struggled to understand what this meant for us. Lily's voice, warm and full of energy, carried the message home. But what we discovered is that family isn't just about where you come from. It's about the love, trust, and memories you build together. Our Father gave us that, and for that, we'll always be grateful. The audience listened intently, the weight of their words sinking in. The triplets spoke not of the pain of their discovery, but of the resilience and hope that had emerged from it. They shared how their bond, strengthened by their unique connection, had carried them through this journey. By the end, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Mr. Carter sat in the front row, his heart swelling with pride. Watching his daughters transform their pain into purpose was a moment he would treasure forever. When the speech ended, the hall erupted in applause, and the girls descended from the stage to embrace him. You were incredible, Mr. Carter said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm so proud of you. Emma reached into her bag and handed him a carefully folded piece of paper. We made this for you, she said softly. Mr. Carter unfolded the paper to reveal a drawing. It depicted their family, himself and the triplets, surrounded by 3 small hearts. The hearts symbolized the bond that had carried them through everything, unbreakable, eternal, and full of love. His eyes filled with tears as he held the drawing close to his chest. You 3 are my everything, he whispered, pulling them into a tight embrace. Thank you for letting me be your father. The evening ended quietly back at their home. The 4 of them sat together in the living room, the triplets reminiscing about their childhood antics. Laughter filled the space, just as it always had, but there was a new depth to their joy, born from a shared understanding of their journey. Mr. Carter watched them, his heart full. He thought of his late wife, silently thanking her for the gift of these extraordinary girls. As Emma teased Sophie about her messy art supplies and Lily made a joke that sent them all into fits of laughter, Mr. Carter leaned back in his chair, content. In the warm glow of the room, he whispered to himself, I'm the luckiest father in the world. The story ended not with the weight of the past, but with the lightness of love and the promise of a future defined by family, resilience, and hope. The triplets, once tied together by mystery, were now bound by something far greater. the unshakable power of their choice to embrace each other and the life they had built together.